Good morning, everyone. Shana Tova to all of you. Such a pleasure to have you with us. Those of you who are in the sanctuary here, along with our soloist, Allison Rosoff, our other soloist, Michelle Koningsberg, Tim Berneman, who's down at the piano, and our tech crew in the back. It's wonderful to see you as we continue our celebration of the Jewish New Year. 5782. Hope you like that little song, little ditty that Tim and I put together last night. We're going to begin our service with the morning prayer, Ma Tovu, that you can find on page 109 right after this reading. I've awakened again, and I give thanks. Before me, the blessing of this day, a feast of choices and possibilities, and the breath within me says, great is your faithfulness. You offer me another chance. You offer me life. This day I am created to create this day.
Ma tovu ohalecha, ohalecha, Yaakov. Ma tovu ohalecha, Mishkenotecha, Yisrael. Va'ani birov hastecha, avovetecha, eshtachavei elhecha koshecha, eshtachavei elhecha koshecha b'yiratecha. Ma tovu ohalecha, ohalecha, Yaakov. Ma tovu ohalecha, Mishkenotecha, Yisrael. Va'ani birov hastecha, avovetecha, eshtachavei elhecha koshecha, eshtachavei elhecha koshecha v'yiratecha. Yai lai 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 lai
Pause for station identification. Neglected to introduce myself. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. And just a little brief note about our prayer book, Mishkan HaNefesh, Dwelling Place of the Soul. You'll notice on the screen, or if you're in the sanctuary, that there's a full transliteration of all of the prayers, as well as many different additional selections, new readings of the translation, as well as a lot of new poetry, which hopefully will help you open your heart and lift your spirit on this New Year's Day. We're going to continue the Shacharit morning service on page 112 with a prayer for study. Feel free to join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, supreme power of the universe. You sanctify our lives with mitzvot and give us the sacred obligation of learning and living Torah. And on 121, you have taught us, guard yourselves well. Take good care of your lives. Your word calls to us. Do no harm to yourself. Do not weaken or exhaust yourself. In gratitude for the gift of our bodies, we pray for a year of renewed health and replenished strength. May caring for our bodies become our daily practice. May we be attentive to our need for proper food, sleep, and exercise. Let no injury come to others through our acts or failure to act. But let our mitzvah be this: to build a just society in which care is a birthright and the blessing of health the responsibility of all. Baruch atah Adonai rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. Continue on page 136 with a reading about the shofar. Feel free to join me responsively. Blessed are we, blessed our gathering as we open our hearts to the voice of the shofar. Happy are we who hear its call to return, the sacred trumpet of Teshuvah. Blessed are we held close by an ancient sound that echoes Lador Vador from generation to generation. Happy are we rising to the joyful cry of a new year. Blessed are we who hear in these blasts of sound the voice of community. Happy are we who know its embrace, its season of celebration, its quest for connection and purpose. Holy is this gift of community. Blessed the act of belonging. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, the divine abounds everywhere and dwells in everything. Its faces are infinite, its source suffuses all, the many are one. My honor to call our Baal Koreh, Larry Lieberman, to the bima. He'll be sounding the shofar, the sound of Tekiah, Shvarim, Truah, and Tekiah. And I'll ask all of us to rise for the sounding of the shofar. Tekiah, Shivarim Truah, Tekiah. Blessed is the soul-reaching sound of the shofar. It proclaims the purpose of this day. Blessed is community, source of joy, solace, and strength to every living soul. Feel free to be seated. Find the words to the half Kaddish, the Chatzi Kaddish, on 141.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Amen. B'yaman divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayech kol beit Yisrael. B'galav izman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yesh me'Rabbah mivorach viroma vidnasei, vidadar, vidale, vidalal, shmei kudesha, rihu, le'ela, le'ela, min kol birchata shireta, tu b'shvichata v'nechemata, damiran be'yama, b'miru, amen.
Let's rise now for the call to prayer, the Baruch, page 142.
Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Morahu et Adonai, Amivorach, Baruch Adonai, Amivorach, Leolam Vaed.
Continue with a prayer for creation, the Yotzer, page 145. The morning wind forever blows. The poem of creation is uninterrupted, but few are the ears that hear it. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot, our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights. And on the following page, may learning your Torah light up our eyes. May our hearts embrace your mitzvot. Unite us in love and reverence for you, that we may never feel ashamed of our deeds.
V'ha'erneinu b'toratecha, v'dabek lebeinu b'mitzvotecha, ve'yachel levaveinu le'ahava u'yira et shamecha, v'lo nivosh le'olam va'ed, v'lo nivosh le'olam va'ed, v'ha'erneinu b'toratecha, v'na'abek lebeinu b'mitzvotecha, ve'yachel levaveinu le'ahava u'yira et shamecha.
Continue on page 148. Bring us in peace from the four corners of the earth. Lead us with upright pride to the land that's ours. For you are a God of miracles and wonders. From all the peoples of the earth you sought us out and brought us near to your great enduring truth. So with love we acknowledge and proclaim that you are one. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Our praise to you, Adonai. You have singled out your people Israel with love.
Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
free to be seated. Please join us chanting the V'ahavta, you shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Page 152. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'aderet ushokpecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot ayadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uktavtam Amizuzot betecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem Me'aretz Mitzrayim, V'ot lachem le'Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. Please join me with a poem on page 157. Love God with your mind, stay curious, open to questions, marvel at the wonder of what is. Love God with your heart. Stay alive to suffering and joy, yearn for the world that could be. Love God with all your strength. Open your hands and give. Work for the sake of what ought to be. Our prayer of freedom, Nichamocha, is found on 164.
Who is like you? No one, no one. Who is like you, oh God? Who is like you? No one, no one. Who is like you, oh God? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neda b'kodesh nora tehilot osef ele. Who is like you, O God? Malechutecha ra'uvanecha bokeyem lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Zeili, 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 Zeili Anu v'amru. Oh, who is like you? No one, no one. Who is like you, oh
Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Blessed are you in our lives, Eternal One, who redeemed Israel. Let's rise now for the tefillah, standing before God. Begins on page 166 and continues on even pages.
Adonai, Siftai Tivtak, Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Adonai, Siftai Tivtak, Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Adonai, Siftai Tivtak, Morit hatal, Michael Chaim bechesed, Mechaye Hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noftim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umechayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al givurot, Umido melach, melech meimit umechaye, umatmiach Yeshua, Michamocha el rachamim, zocher yitzurav l'chaimim brachamim, v'ne'eman ata l'chachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
Please be seated. Continue with one of the very special prayers called Unatana Tochef for the power of this day on page 175. Let us embrace the day and its holiness, for this day is a throne of goodness and power. Together, when the people of Israel do God's will, they strengthen God's power on high. But when the people of Israel fail to do God's will, they weaken, if one might say it, God's great power on high. So let this day recall your power and ours. Let it remind us of our promises kept and broken, as we remind you of yours. Let this day be a throne of forgiveness, for today we are the accountants of our souls, the navigators of our hearts, seeking wholeness and new direction. And we seek you through signs of your presence in the arc of sacred history. I make this covenant not with you alone, but with those who are standing here with us this day, and with those who are not. God of ages past and future, God of this day, as you are with our mothers and fathers, be with us as well. Feel free to join me on 176. And so a great shofar will cry Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As the shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decree destiny, you inscribe judgments.
Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, uvyom som kippur yikatemun. Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, uvyom som kippur yikatemun.
On 179, on Rosh Hashanah, we plunge like swimmers into a sea of words. On Yom Kippur, the sea rises, then crests, and we emerge sealed by the wax, warmed by the fire of braided candle. The new year is like a trailhead opening wide before us. The day of fasting, narrow, breathless, so quick to close. We contemplate a new year, and this we know. Some of us will live and some of us will die. Some will die young and some very old, some by water and some by fire, some by sword and some by beast. some by hunger and some by thirst, some by plague and some by earthquake, some by stoning and some by strangling. Some of us will feel at ease, some will be restless. Some will have peace of mind, some will have strife. Some will be tranquil, some will be tormented. Some will be raised high, some will be brought low. Some will have riches, some will be impoverished. Continue on 180. But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree.
Utashuva, utafila, utzdaka, ma'irinet agzera.
Continuing on 182, we who are mortal, our origin is dust, and so is our end. We wear out our lives to get our bread, like broken vessels, like withered grass, like a flower that must fade, a shadow moving on, a cloud passing by, mere dust on the wind, a dream that flies away.
Ve'atahu melech el chai v'kayam. Ve'atahu melech el chai v'kayam.
We rise now for the words of sanctification, Kiddushat Hashem, page 184.
Nikadesh, Nikadesh, Shimcha ba'olam, Nikadesh, Shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shimakdishim oto b'shnei morom, kakatuv el yad nevi'echa, v'charazel zeh ve'yamar. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Zevaot, melech haaretz kivodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adir, Adirenu. Adonai, Adonai, Adonenu. Madir, Madir, Shimecha b'chol haaretz. Baruch kivod Adonai mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu. Baruch atah Adonai.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue on page 199, Shofar Malchuyot, the voice of sovereignty, a teaching from Rabbah. According to Rabbah, the Holy One said, on Rosh Hashanah, recite before me words of Malchuyot, sovereignty, Zichronot, remembrance, and Shofarot, sovereignty, so that you may acknowledge me as ruler over you. Remembrance, so that remembrances of you may rise up faithfully before me. And how shall all this be accomplished? Through the sounds of the shofar. Please rise as we open the ark for the Great Aleinu, page 202.
Aleinu L'Adon HaKol L'Tigedula Le'otzer Reshit Shelo Asanu Kegoye Haratzot Ve'lo Semanu Kemishbechot Sam Kelkeinu Kahem Vigoraleinu Kechol Hamonam Va'anachnu Mishtachavim umodim Lifnei melech malchei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Be seated. We'll continue on page 205, a meditation for the sounding of the shofar. Dwell on each sound of the shofar, contemplate its meaning. Tekiyah, one whole note. Shvarim truah, 3 broken notes, 9 staccato notes. Tekiyah, one whole note. My return to the right path has the power to make me whole again. Tekiyah, once I was whole. Shvarim Truah, in the wear and tear of living, I became broken and shattered. Tekiah, my teshuvah, has the power to make me whole again. Pleasure to call Larry Lieberman, who will be our Baal Tekiah for the shofar service. Please rise for the blessings of the shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, summoning us to hear the sound of the shofar. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, giving us life, upholding the life within us, and bringing us to this time. Ready? Tekiah, Shivarim Truah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shivarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Truah, Tekiah. Feel free to be seated. Yashar Kol. Hayom Harat Olam. Today the world is born anew. This day the whole of creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in the way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice, grace, and holiness. Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out Tekiah. Lovingly, favorably receive our prayers of Malchuyot. We'll continue on 213. For gratitude, giver of life and all good gifts, grant us also wisdom to use only what we need, courage to trust your bounty, imagination to preserve our resources, determination to deny frivolous excess, and inspiration to sustain through temptation. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha u'hana'eh lechodot. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose goodness deserves thanks and praise. Continue with the words of Birkat Kohanim, the threefold priestly blessing on 214.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka
not sown. May you know God's blessings of shelter and care. May it be so. May you receive the light of God's kindness and grace. May it be so. May you see God's favor and goodness, and may you partake of God's peace. May it be so. Sim Shalom, our prayer for peace, is found on 2:16.
Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chin v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, v'yakol yiresh lamecha, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom.
Let the pursuit of peace and justice be our highest good. May all people make peace their responsibility. Let Torah be a light that guides our lives toward empathy and understanding, toward generosity of heart. Let peace be our passion, chief among our prayers, every season of the year, every hour of the day. Baruch atah Adonai, Oseh Shalom. You are the Blessed One, eternal source of shalom. Take these moments for our silent prayer, hearing the words of Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Ad Yisrael Amicha. Shalom Rav.
Please rise as we open the ark to hear the words of Avinu Malkeinu. Page 224. Avinu Malkeinu, we stand in awe, we draw close in love. Avinu Malkeinu, the power that passes through us and pervades all things. Avinu Malkeinu, the divine that is present within and among us. Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolenu, we speak this sacred truth aloud. Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha, we stand as one, accountable for our sins. Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu Ve'al Olalenu V'Tapenu, we yearn for true compassion for our children most of all. Avinu Malkeinu Kale Dever V'Chera V'Ra'av Me'aleinu, may we resist the ravages of illness, fear, and despair. Avinu Malkeinu Kale Kol Tsar U'Masin Me'aleinu, let us summon courage to withstand our enemies. Avinu Malkeinu Kotvenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim, let the goodness of this gift of life be engraved upon our hearts. Avinu Malkeinu Kadesh Aleinu Shana Tova, may we taste anew the sweetness of each day. Avinu Malkeinu Malei Yadeinu Mibirchotecha, let us wake up to the blessings already in our grasp. Avinu Malkeinu Chonenu Va'anenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim, Asei Manu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. However small our deeds, let us see their power to heal. May we save lives through compassion, generosity, and justice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu V'Anenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu V'Anenu, Ki Eimanu Ma'asim. Asei Manu, Tzedakah V'Chesed. Asei Manu, Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Asei Manu, Tzedakah V'Chesed. Asei Manu, Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu V'Anenu, Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim.
We remain standing for the Torah service. Seder Kriyat HaTorah, which begins on page 228 with the reading of God's 13 attributes. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, Notzer Chesed L'Alafim, Nosei Avon V'Fesha V'Chata'ah V'Nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the 1,000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, העולם עומד. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, העולם עומד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. יה לי 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 לי
Feel free to be seated. The Torah portion for Rosh Hashanah Day 1 is one of the most important and challenging in all of the Torah, and this is the Akedah, or the binding of Isaac, considered by the sages to be the 10th and final test of Abraham to offer his son to God on top of Mount Moriah. Hopefully you enjoyed, while we were making the processional, the pictures of past presidents holding the Sifrei Torah. Thank you so much to all of them. We're going to have 2 aliyahs, and the Torah readings are both going to be on video, so you'll be able to hear and see in just a few moments after David Chazin does the opening blessing, which is found on page 230. So I'll invite David to go to the microphone right at the foot of the bima, and I'll turn it on. Yamod David la'aliyah la Torah.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamparah.
Adonai Barak le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamparach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher barchabanu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayhi achar hadivarim ha'ele v'ha'elohim nisa et Avraham vayomer elav Avraham vayomer hineni vayomer kachna et bincha et yichidicha asher ahavta et Yitzchak v'lech lecha el eretz haMoriah V'aleyu sham le'olah al achad heharim asher amar elecha. Vayashkem Avraham baboker vayachavosh et chamaro vayikach et shnei narav ita ve'et Yitzchak beno vayivaka atzei olah Vayakam vayelech el hamakam asher amar lo ha'elohim. Bayam hashelishi Vayisa Abraham et einav, vayar et hamakom merachok. Vayomer Abraham el ne'arav, shuvu lachem pa'im hachamor, va'ani v'hanar nelcha adka, v'nishtachaveh v'nashuva aleichem. Vayikach Abraham et atzeholah, vayasem al Yitzchak beno, vayikach biyado et haesh ve'et hamachelet, vayilchu shnehem yachdav. Vayomer Yitzchak el Abraham avi, vayomer avi, vayomer hineni bini, vayomer hine ha'esh v'ha'etzim va'ayeh haseh le'olah. Vayomer Abraham Elohim haseh le'olah bini, vayilchu shnehem yachdav. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo Elohim, vayiben sham Abraham et hamizbeach, vayaroch et ha'etzim, vayakod et Yitzchak beno, vayasem oto al hamizbeach mima'al la'etzim, vayishlach Abraham et yado, vayikach et hamachelet lishechot et beno.
Yasher Koach to Will Greenberg for that great chanting of Torah from the scroll, and David's going to do the closing blessing for the Torah at this time.
Baruch Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nata lanu Torah emet, v'che'olam nata echamenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeah, leave that there. No, not right now.
Okay.
I'll call you back a little later. Say Yasher Koach to David Chazen. He'll be joining us later for the translation of the Torah. And with the Torah still before us, we have the opportunity to offer special words of healing to members of our community and beyond. We think of those who are suffering with COVID, prayers for their recovery, as well as all those in recovery due to Hurricane Ida. In addition to those individuals, we think of the following people in our community for healing: Yonatan Ruvain Ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Eddie Deerfield, Edie Eckber, Evelyn Edelman, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Maxine Frank, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Maria Yehuda Gonzalez, Jerry Gottlieb, Leah Gottlieb, Doris Harding, Priscilla Harris, Paula Hickey, Arthur Maller, Ray Mancari, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Paula Rosoff, Stephanie Ross, Arlene Charlotte, Scott Spector, Jeff Stark, and Mark Stouffer. If there are any other names to add for healing at this time, either in the sanctuary or at home, feel free.
My father, George Stark, and John Costanza.
Find the words to Misha Berach on page 245.
Misheberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach Imotenu those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
My pleasure at this time to call upon our second Aliyah La Torah to invite Debbie Lieberman to join us right before the Bima for the blessing before the Torah, page 230. And Jim Roberts will be chanting the Torah scroll on the video screen.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim. Vayomer Abraham, Abraham. Vayomer hineni. Vayomer al tishlach yadcha el hana'ar v'al taslo me'uma. Ki ata yadati. Kirei Elohim ata v'lo chasachta et pincha et yechidecha mimeni. Vayisa Abraham et einav vayar v'hine yayil achar nechaz basfach v'karnav. Vayelech Abraham vayikach et ha'ayil v'yalei ola tachat beno. Vayikra Abraham Shem hamakom hahu Adonai yireh. Asher yamer hayom b'har Adonai yireh. Vayikra malach Adonai el Abraham she'eni min hashamayim. Vayomer binishpati neum Adonai ki an asher asita et hadavar hazeh v'lo chasachta et pincha et yechidecha ki varech avarechecha v'harba arba et zoracha kochavei hashamayim v'chachol asher asafat hayam v'yirash zoracha et sha'ar oivav v'hitbarchu v'zarcha kol goyei haaretz Hekev asher shamata b'koli vayashav Abraham el hana'ar vayakumu vayelchu yachdav el be'er shava vayeshev Abraham b'be'er shava.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei L'olam Nata B'tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koach to Debbie, Yasher Koach also to Jim for great chanting of the Torah scroll. Pleasure to call David Chazen forward again. He's going to be reading a Torah translation that's not going to be found on the screen before you.
God decided to give Abraham a test to see if he would obey everything that was commanded of him. So God said to Abraham, "Hey, Abraham, I'm right here, ready, willing, and able," snapped Abraham, standing at attention. So God said, "Take your son." "Which son, God?" "I have two, Ishmael and Isaac, and I want to do just what you say." "Your only son." "Which only son, God?" "Ishmael is his mother's only son, and Isaac is his mother's only son." "The one you love." "Well," Abraham said, slowly, not quite standing at attention anymore, "I love both of them." God sighed. Said God. Abraham replied very slowly this time and said, "All right, What do I have to do? God said quietly, take him to a mountain 3 days away, bring him to the top of the mountain, and leave him there. Give him to me. Abraham swallowed. It was on the tip of his tongue to argue, but Abraham had learned at Sodom and Gomorrah that bargaining with God tends to make things longer rather than shorter. So they went to the mountain, and Abraham and Isaac hiked the path together. Isaac was full of curiosity. Abraham was full of dread, which is curiosity without the fun. Neither one knew which lay ahead. When they reached the top of the mountain, Abraham made a base of wood, on top of which was an altar, and tied to that altar was Isaac. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the carving knife he brought with him in order to kill his son. Just then, at the moment before the carving knife arched downward towards his precious son, a voice rang out, "Hey, Abraham." Abraham spun around, his heart in his throat, going dizzy with fear and the wildest hope of relief. "I'm right here," he gasped. "I'm ready, willing, and able." "Don't hurt the boy. Instead, you'll find a ram caught in a bush. Why not slaughter that here and offer some of it to God, and in the meantime, share the special meal with your son? Just remember this as a special place, a place where you follow God's voice and you found you could make the journey and come home safely. This place is called Insight."
Much, David. Going to invite Lauren Barless once again. She's going to help dress the Torah. First, we'll lift the Torah. I'll ask all of us to rise the words of Vizot HaTorah. This is the teaching found on page 246.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. אלי 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 וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. לי 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 לי
My pleasure to call in front of the Bema Bobby Rosenberg. She is going to be providing an introduction to the Haftarah selection, which is going to be Shmuel Aleph Samuel. You'll find the introduction on page 248 along with the screens before you.
Hayam Harat Olam. Today the world is born anew. These words, recited after the Torah is sounded, underscore a central theme of Rosh Hashanah creation and the renewal of all life. The traditional Torah reading for the first day of Rosh Hashanah accentuates this message. Genesis tells us the end of Sarah's barrenness and the birth of Isaac. So, too, the Haftarah chosen the sages for our first day of Rosh Hashanah recounts the story of a barren woman whose prayers are answered by the birth of her child. Hannah, a woman of deep piety and spiritual grace, her name means grace, presents a model of heartfelt prayer and integrity that contrasts sharply with the behavior of Eli, the high priest. Hannah cries out to God in bitterness and spirit, Marat Nefesh. She has given life, like her, we come together on Rosh Hashanah to seek a renewed life and hope, to pray that we might transcend our pain and transform our lives.
Yasher Koach, many thanks, Bobby, one of our past presidents. Hopefully you enjoyed her picture holding the Torah along with all of our other past presidents, and we thank all of them for their years of service to our congregation. My pleasure to call Arlene Siegel forward. She will be leading the Haftarah blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'direihem hanemarim b'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Abacher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet b'tzedek.
Amen. Pleasure to call forward Elaine Wolstein, director of our religious school for many, many decades, to lead us in the reading of the selection from Shmuel Aleph, beginning with chapter 1, verse 1. Translation should be on the screen before you and on page 250 in the prayer book.
Thank you very much. Vayehi ish echad min haramatayim tzofim mehar Ephraim ushmo Elkanah ben Yeroham ben Elihu ben Tohu ben Suf Ephrati velo shetei nashim shem achat Chana v'shem hashenit Penina vayehi lifnina Yiladim Uchana ein Yiladim V'Allah Haish Hahu Meiro Miyamima Yamima Lehishtachavot V'Lizboach Ladonai Tzivaot B'Shilo V'Sham Shnei V'nei Eli Chofni Ufi Nachas Kohanim Ladonai Vayehi Hayom Vayizbach Elkanah V'Natan Lifnina Ishto
ולכל בניה ובנותיה מנות, ולחנה ייתן מנה אחת אפיים, כי את חנה אהב ואדוני סגר רחמה, וכי עשת צרתה גם כעס בעבור הרעימר, כי סגר אדוני בעד רחמה, וכן יעשה שנה ושנה מדי עלותה בבית אדוני, כן תכיסנה ותבכה ולא תאכל. ויאמר לה אלקנה אישה, חנה למה תבכי ולמה לא תאכלי, ולמה ירא לבבך, הלא אנוכי טוב לך מעשרה בנים. ותקום חנה אחרי אוכלה ושילה ואחרי שתו, ואלי הכהן יושב על הכיסא על מזודת היכל אדוני, והיא מרת נפש, ותתפלל על אדוני ובכה תבכה, ותדור נדר ותאמר אדוני צבאות אמראו תראה בעוני אמתך, וזכרתני ולא תשכח את אמתך, ונתת לאמתך זרע אנשים, ונתתי לאדוני כל ימי חייו, ומורא לא יעלה על ראשו. והיה כי הרבתה להתפלל לפני אדוני, ואלי שומר את פיה, וחנה היא מדברת על ליבה, רק שפתיה נאות, וקולה לא ישמע, ויחשביה אלי לסיכורה.
Yasher Koach, beautiful chanting from Samuel. Thank you so much. And Arlene's going to lead the closing blessing for the Haftarah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol haolamim, tzadik b'kol ha'adorot, ha'el ha'nehemman, ha'mefelseh, ha'mdaber kayem, shekol divarav emet b'tzedek al haTorah, v'al havodah, v'al hanvim, v'al yom hazikaron hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, lichavod ultifaret al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu mod modim lach, umrachim otach. Yitbarach shimcha, b'fikol chai, tamid le'olam vahed. Udracha emet v'yakayem lahad. Baruch atah Adonai, melech al kol haaretz, mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron.
Amen. Yasher koach, Harleen, thank you so much. Now we're going to continue with the second part of our service for the sounding of the shofar, Zichronot, Remembrance, found on page 268. Please rise. My honor to call Larry Lieberman to lead us in the shofar sounding. Tekiah, Shivarim Trua, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shivarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Trua, Tekiah. Yasher koach, well done. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue. Hayom Harat Olam. Today the world is born anew. This day the whole of creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in the way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice, grace, and holiness.
Reshet Sfatenu, Yehavam lefanecha, Eram v'nisa, Ram v'nisa, Me'evin u'ma'azin, Ma'abit u'makshiv, L'kol, Tekihatenu,
Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out Tekiah. Lovingly, favorably receive our prayers of Zichronot. Let's now take some extended time for reflection, your own silent prayers. You can also feel free to follow along on the screen. You'll find prayers for our community, congregation, our country, and for the state of Israel.
Ooh, ooh.
We're going to return the Torah to the Ark. On page 277, you'll find the words to Eitz Chaim, that Torah is a tree of life. A precious teaching I have given you, my Torah, do not forsake it. A tree of life to those who hold it fast. All who embrace it know happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Take us back, Adonai. Let us come back to you. Renew in our time the days of old. Please rise as we open the Ark.
Eitz Chaim
Pleasure once again to call forward our Baal Tekiah, Larry Lieberman, for our final selection from the shofar service. Turning to page 284. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol truah amo Yisrael barachamim. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, true voice of your people Israel. Please rise. Tekiah, Shivarim Truah. Tekiah, Tekiah, Shivarim. Tekiah, Tekiah, Truah, Tekiah Gedolah. Yeah, Yashikoa. Feel free to be seated. Happy New Year to you. Hayom Harat Olam, today the world is born anew. This day the whole of creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in the way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice, grace, and holiness. Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out Tekiah. Lovingly, favorably, receive our prayers of shofarot. Among the many ardent Boston Red Sox fans in the world, there are at least a few of them who believe that the things they do or don't do during any particular game have a direct effect on the game's outcome. It's completely illogical, of course, but it happens just the same. As an example, one of my friends from when I was a little kid still blames himself for the Red Sox losing the '86 World Series, which was a bitter pill to swallow for any New England sports fan. The story went like this. I was watching Game 6 on the TV in my living room, while he was watching the game about 500 feet away. His house was close by from his living room. Both of us were 13, having celebrated our B'nai Mitzvah at the same congregation in the same year. Now, I'm not particularly superstitious when it comes to ball games, but he was. So much so, he thought that disaster would strike if he left the TV even for a moment or two. As it happened, it's Game 6 of the World Series. The Red Sox are 1 out from winning it all, and for some reason, he went to the fridge and he grabbed a soda. Then, disaster struck. The Mets batter Mookie Wilson poked this tiny little ground ball right to Bill Buckner at first base. Buckner went down to pick up the ball, but it bounced right over his glove and down the right field line. Game over. The Mets won Game 6, and then they won Game 7. The World Series was lost. Clearly, it was my friend's fault. When I was a kid, being a Red Sox fan was very existentially difficult. And this continued until 2004, when they won their first World Series in 86 years. And since then, it's been a much easier ride. The point of the story is that all of us, as human beings, strive and want to create meaning in our lives, not only when good things happen to us, but also when we experience misfortune. We look for patterns because there's some comfort we can take knowing that the world is predictable. Moreover, a lot of us want to believe that the world is fair, even though we know that this ideal may never become a reality. Pretty much all religions, including Judaism, operate with this ideal in mind. Good people will be blessed. The people who do bad things will get their just desserts at some point. So it was with the good person I'd like to speak to you about today, whose name was Job. According to the biblical book that bears his name, called Eov in Hebrew, Job was a really good guy, both wholehearted and upright. He looked to God with a sense of awe, fear, and reverence, and he shied away from evil. By all accounts, Job was very blessed. He had a wife, and to top it off, had 9 children who all seemed to get along with one another, which is a miracle in and of itself. His family owned a large property with many thousands of animals, and his reputation was sterling throughout the land. Then, in short order, the rug was pulled underneath his feet. Everything Job was blessed with was taken away. Like sands through the hourglass, his children tragically met their demise at a family feast. Job lost his property, his livestock died, all of his wealth was gone, even his reputation was now tarnished. Because back then, if that many bad things happened to you, there must have been a reason for all of that suffering. In considering Job's predicament, Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote the following in his book called The Book of Job, When Bad Things Happened to a Good Person. He said, perhaps no area of life raises more questions about the strength of the moral order of our world than the misfortunes that befall so many of us. This teaching seems very true to life. I'd venture to say that all of us want to live in a world that makes sense, where things happen for a reason, and where there's a sense of fairness, even if it's hard to come by. As an example, It's enough for a lot of people to know that a destructive hurricane is a result of very high ocean temperatures, a low pressure system, and destructive winds. But that rational explanation won't satisfy everyone. First, because they don't tell us why some people are affected more than others when disaster strikes. And second, because so many of us believe that there's an architect behind the events in our lives. One of the earliest Jewish legends speak to this. It describes how Abraham came to believe in God. The story begins with our patriarch walking through the desert. Then all of a sudden, he looks up and he sees a palace lit on fire. Abraham looks closely, but he doesn't see anyone inside. And he doesn't see anyone running away from the palace. So he wondered, is it possible that no one is looking after this palace? At that moment, God called out to him and said, Abraham, I am looking after this palace. Job, like Abraham, believed the hand of God was present in the world. He also shared with Abraham an innate sense of good and evil. So it's no wonder that Job tried to find meaning after his misfortune. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that Job's story is compelling precisely because at times it mirrors our own. As we know, bad things happen to good people. A loved one or a friend faces a serious illness, a death or a tragedy occurs. Sometimes we might just seem to have bad luck. But precisely because of our desire to seek fairness in the world, the book of Job is worthy of exploration. And Job's story is fitting, considering the pandemic we're facing now calls to mind many of the same theological questions found in its 42 chapters. We wonder, why is this happening to us? Why doesn't God just fix what's going on? Where did this virus, which is causing so much misfortune, come from? In looking at our present-day experience through the lens of Job, we can see how the issue of fairness is being played out in real time. Many journalists and scholars of public health have written about the racial disparities that exist when it comes to finding reliable medical information about the pandemic, accessing proper medical care, and receiving the vaccine itself. For example, the proportion of COVID hospitalizations has been statistically higher for racial and ethnic minority patients in every single region of the country, according to data from the Centers for Disease Control, who tracks these types of issues. And while all of us are still living within the pandemic, people are already searching for meaning, both as individuals and as communities. So let's take a look at Job's story. The first part of the book resembles a fable. Once upon a time, we learn in the heavenly court, an angel named Satan, not Satan, but Satan, the Hebrew word meaning adversary, appears before God to give an update on the goings-on down on earth. God turns to Satan and says, "Have you noticed my servant Job? There's no one like him on earth, blameless and upright." Upon hearing this, the adversary says, "Well, of course he's doing well. You've rewarded him greatly for all of his faith." Taken aback, God insists that Job would be faithful with or without his blessings. This leads Satan to propose a wager, which God accepts, to see if, indeed, this will be the case. We'll never really know if it went down like this. There are scholars, of course, who believe that Job was a real person, probably related to Abraham or maybe Esau. Many others see the book of Job as simply a parable we can learn from, one that teaches a timeless lesson through the lens of an every person like you or me. At first, Job seems to pass the test. Listen to his response to his wife after she cries out the following: "Job, if something so terrible is happening to us, what's the point of being faithful?" Just curse God and be done with it. Job is aghast and says to her, should we only accept the good that God gives us and not the ill? In this moment, Job proves Satan, the adversary, wrong. He still, at least at this point, acknowledges God is the source of the blessings as well as misfortunes in life. It's possible the story could have ended right there, with his friends coming over to offer their condolences, sharing well-meaning remarks about the unfairness of life and the fact that some people just have bad luck. But Job wouldn't have found comfort in that because he wanted to believe that God's plan for him was just. So the tale continued. What really happened was that his 3 closest friends came over and sat next to Job silently. This is the practice that many Jews still follow today, to wait until the mourner speaks before offering any words of comfort. For Job, this silence gave space for his emotions to bubble up. Then Job cried, "Curse the day I was born. May God have no concern for it, and may light not shine on it." His friends listened quietly without trying to talk him out of his feelings. They assured Job that he was a good person, a mensch, and that eventually things would turn out all right. But Job wasn't comforted. In fact, the more his friends spoke to him, the worse he felt. And like so many of us, his grief eventually turned to anger, just like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said it would when she described the various stages of grief, that when we face a loss, eventually we'll experience a full set of emotions: denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and hopefully acceptance. After Job shared these feelings, he took God to task, saying, "God, you are a people watcher, just waiting for us to stumble in order to punish us when we miss the mark." So how should we understand Job's anger? Some people may feel vindicated by it, pointing out that Job's true colors are really coming out, that his piety and his faith was only a facade. I believe that Joseph's honesty should be commended because Job wrestles with his faith without giving up on it or God. The same can be said about us. We are called the people of Israel, B'nai Yisrael, for a reason, because built into this word, Yisrael is the reality that we struggle or wrestle with God. It's part of our very nature, and we can become stronger and more faithful because of it. To my mind, this is one of the true privileges of being Jewish, that we're allowed to ask the questions we want, and we're allowed to wrestle with our faith and with God. This, Rabbi Kushner suggests, is not only acceptable, but it may be one of the hallmarks of a truly religious person. As with any important relationship, we need to be honest. We need to share our love and affection with those closest to us, our spouse, our parents, our children, our close friends, and be comfortable enough to know that even if we disagree with them or disagree with their actions, we can talk freely without damaging the relationship. Job, at the end of the day, still believed that God was by his side, even after God appeared to him out of a whirlwind and gave him a massive reality check on the nature of the world, how it operates, and Job's infinitely small place in it. So it is with us. Over the past year and a half, we've experienced a reality check of our own. All of us have felt at times fear, frustration, even anger, all because of a tiny microscopic virus wreaking havoc in our world. We're not any closer to discovering where it came from, though we know a lot about it now and what it can do. And thankfully, due to the remarkable work of many scientists and physicians, we have multiple vaccines to keep it at bay. And we have the means to lessen the virus's staying power. by wearing masks around others in public, regardless of our vaccination status. Speaking personally, I don't agree with the theological notion that God brought this plague upon the world because of our misdeeds, as if God controls the world like a puppet master. At the same time, I don't believe that God only showers us with blessings. It's not realistic. And as we know, there are times when bad things happen to good people. What I do believe is this: God can satisfy our soul when we're parched. As the prophet Isaiah noted, when we have faith in God, we will be like a watered garden. I like this metaphor because it invites us to identify when we feel spiritually drained and how we might go about watering our soul. Remember back in the spring when things looked like they were turning a corner? Many medical experts believed the vaccinated could shed their masks in most public settings, but the virus had other plans. Later in the summer, a congregant sent me a great text which summed it up well. There were two images side by side. The picture on the left, when I looked at my phone, featured a beautiful-looking challah, above which it said, "My fall plans." The picture on the right was a plate full of matzah. Above that, it said, "The Delta variant." The sages teach us God is like a mirror. The mirror never changes, but everyone who looks at it sees a different face. Some people read the book of Job and it confirms exactly what they already believe. Others approach the book of Job in the hope that what they'll see in God's mirror will lead to a new understanding. There may well be a grand divine plan, but even if we got a hold of the blueprints, it's probably not anything we'd be able to do with or to understand. For sure, Job wasn't there when the world was created. He didn't set the sun, moon, and stars into motion. But God stood by Job's side in his sadness as well as his frustration. In a word, God was and remains deeply concerned about the issue of good people suffering. Perhaps that's the most compelling answer of all. In life, there's mystery. In life, we're certainly challenged. But hopefully with the love and support of family and friends and the faith that God is there to parch our thirsty souls, we can look ahead to the future with a sense of hope and optimism. And like Job, with faith that in the main, things will eventually work their way out. Shana Tova. Going to continue with the words of Aleinu, the adoration, found on page 286. Please rise as the ark is opened.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, להתיר גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Continue with a beautiful poem written by Hannah Senish on 291. There are stars up above, Yesh Kochavim, so far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. So it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. You'll find the words of Kaddish Tome, Mourner's Kaddish, on 292 as we think of families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days mourning a loved one. As we remember Paul Joseph Landis, brother of Sally Laufer, Bob Shear, our first temple president, Myrna Klein, mother of Lonnie Klein, Shirley Abelson, mother of David Abelson, Bella Uziel, mother of Albert Uziel, and Pablo Carreño, cousin of Belinda Konigsberg. We also mark the yahrzeit anniversary of passing of the following individuals with a sense of love and affection, as we remember Alan Allman, Molly Borger, Louis Dorfman, Abe Astulin, Mildred Friedman, Sidney Golden, Edwin Goldsmith, Jerome Granoff, Robert Graves, Daisy Kornfeld, Mike Madigan, Mildred Miller, Seymour Mines, Andrew Molish, Mac Nord, Sarah Perlman, Ethel Reed, Sidney Rosenthal, Sam Siegel, Paul Tudelman, Joe Weingarten, and Leonard Wolstein. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit?
Larry Faber.
Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these good people continue to be a source of blessing in our lives as we rise to offer the words of Kaddish praise together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach yirutevi amlich malchutei, v'chayekonu v'yomechonu v'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivarach le'alam ulamei almayah, yitbarach v'yishavach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemedet kudsha b'rihu, le'ela u'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and the world, as we say, amen.
V'miru, 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 amen. V'miru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated. Just a few brief announcements. Many, many thanks for our musical team, Allison, Michelle, and Tim, our great tech crew and sound engineer in the back. Special shout out to Kara Herman, who rejiggered all of these High Holy Day slides from their original split screen format to picture-in-picture. Thank you very much. Right after this service, at about 12:30, we're going to have an on-premises Tashlich casting of sin service. It'll give maybe 15 minutes or so for people from at home. If you want to rush, just drive safely. And we're going to do a very short Tashlich service here. Later on this afternoon, live stream of our family Tot Age service with a special appearance by Rabbi Love and a song that we're going to share. I believe it's the Beatles today. And you can still sign up for the reverse Tashlich, which is this Sunday, the 12th. We'll meet here at 9:30, and then we're going to go to Honeymoon Island and, in a socially distanced fashion, help clean up the beach. Repair the Sea, SEA, is the name of the website if you'd like to sign up for our team. Pleasure to call upon for our last time today our Baal Tekiyah, Larry Lieberman, to sound the shofar in just a couple of minutes as we turn to page 300, where you'll find the words to the Kiddush, Borei Pri Hagafen, as well as the Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
I'm not going to give it to you.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz,
We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Please rise for our closing words of the service and benediction. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu shechadesh aleinu shana tova umituka. Our God and God of our ancestors, eternal God of all generations, may your presence shine in our lives this new year. Renew our spirits and renew our strength. May it be a good year. May it be a sweet year. Tekiah Gedolah. Yashikoa, great job. L'shana tova tikatevu. L'shana tova tikatevu.
L'shana tova tikatevu. Tikatevu. V'tikatemu.
Shana tova, everyone, until we see you again. Now it's off.